Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. I hope the sound is audible.
Yes, Prabhuji, the sound is
Okay,
audible.
good. Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you all for joining us. We'll begin our program for today. Let me share the screen with all of you. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatai Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you all for joining us for today evening, our weekend Gita Essence program, where we have been discussing from Bhagavad Gita and kind of doing an overview of Bhagavad Gita. This whole course is based on the teachings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Videos on now? Yeah, I just turned on the video. Right. Okay, Hare Krishna. So we welcome you all for today evening discussion, and we'll be starting with chapter 12 for today. So before we get into the discussion, let us quickly recap what we did in chapter 11. Chapter 11, titled as Universal Form, is one of the very important subject matter of Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Shri Krishna did not speak only. Lord Shri Krishna also gave demonstration, practical demonstration. So how did this chapter all begin? It began with Arjuna requesting Lord Shri Krishna, "My dear Lord, I would like to see a form which is all pervasive." And think about it. Krishna fulfilled the desire of Arjuna, which Krishna himself tells, "Hey Arjuna, the desire that you have asked to me to fulfill is very exclusive and is very rare. The darshan of this Virat Roop, which I'm about to give it to you, nobody in the past had ever seen this." So Krishna is also called as Bhakta Vatsala, like a cow and a calf. As soon as the calf comes near to the cow begins to give milk. Similarly, it just shows the love Krishna has for his devotees, where Arjuna asked, "Show me the form," and Krishna immediately agreed for his dear devotee, Arjuna. But why did Arjuna ask for it? Our acharyas describe in the commentary, Srila Prabhupada quotes it. The reason is Arjuna asked for the universal form of the Lord so that no one in the future would dare to claim himself to be the supreme personality of Godhead. Yet, in the present day and time, we have a lot of people, godmen, who declare themselves to be devatas. So Prabhupada writes, Arjuna asked us, Arjuna through this incident, kind of taught us, if anyone declares or claims to be God, then that person should be asked to show his opulences. And prominent of that is Virat Rupa like this. So, in essence, this was the subject matter of the first half part of the 11th chapter. Then later on, when Krishna showed his universal form, Arjuna got frightened, seeing the whole all-devouring Virat Rupa form, where he could see the creation, destruction, maintenance, and everything. And then Arjuna requested in the last section of the 11th chapter, my dear Lord, I'm terrified. I'm totally terrified. I humbly request you, kindly give me or kindly show me your two-handed form with which I can relate. And immediately, excuse me, and immediately Lord Shri Krishna revealed his two-handed form. And before Krishna revealing his two-handed form, Krishna also showed his four-handed form. In other words, this particular chapter 11 proves, as what Krishna says, I'm the source of all sources, I'm the cause of all causes. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is the cause of Narayan or Vishnu, four-handed form of the Lord, and he is the cause of the Virat Rupa. So like this, 11th chapter ends, where Krishna says in the end, concluding words to Arjuna, hey Arjuna, the form that you see right now, the two-handed form of Krishna holding a flute and a Sudarshan Chakra, this two-handed form, of course, Krishna doesn't hold Sudarshan Chakra in a regular point of pastimes, but prominently is Venum Kavantam Arvindalayataaksham. Is represented or identified with the Venu, with the Basari, and Varhavatam Samasita Sundarangam, has a peacock feather on his forehead, like this Brahma Samhita says. So Krishna tells Arjuna, Virat Rupa is not the rarest form that you have seen, although I showed it to you for the first time. However, the two-handed form that you're seeing right now is the rarest of all. And we know in 10th chapter, verse number 2, Krishna says, even the best of the devatas and best of the rishis cannot understand me. So how we can understand Krishna? How we can see the two-handed form of the Lord? Krishna says in the concluding part of 11th chapter, it is only possible through devotional service and nothing else. So when Arjuna heard this, Arjuna began to think. He thought that Lord have shown his Virat Rupa form, which is an impersonal representation of the Lord, because you can't have a relationship. And Lord have also shown his personal form, the Krishna, two-handed form of Krishna. So Arjuna began to think, who is greater? Which spiritualist is greater? The one who is personal, who worships the personal form of the Lord as Krishna, Govinda, Madhusudana, or else who worships the awe-inspiring Virat Rupa or the universal form. So this subject matter of personalist versus impersonalist is a subject matter of greatest and the longest theological debates amongst great thinkers. The question whether God is personal or impersonal have always bothered the great thinkers. Therefore, in this particular chapter 12, Lord Shri Krishna once for all put to rest this subject matter of debate or the controversy, which is better. So how does subject matter of personalist versus impersonalist begin? What is the connection in this Bhagavad Gita? In 10th chapter, verse number 8, Lord Shri Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabho mathas sarvam pravatati. He tells Arjuna that I pervade everything. I'm present all over the place. And that inspired Arjuna to ask Krishna to show me his all-pervasive form. Thus, in chapter 11, Lord Shri Krishna showed his universal form. And that's how this whole subject matter of impersonalism, or this form came into existence. Therefore, here now Arjuna clarifies on behalf of everyone what worship of which form or which spiritualist, one who worship Krishna directly or one who worship this Virat room, is the best. So thus this chapter 12, clarifies this subject of debate and establishes bhakti to be the highest. I remember an example where once Srila Prabhupada was asked, a devotee, a disciple, had recently read 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And he went to Srila Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, since the time I had read 11th chapter and have heard and understood about Virat Roop, I have developed such a great sense of awe and reverence for Virat Roop. However, I don't feel that awe and reverence for Shri Radha and Krishna. Is it all right if I worship Virat Roop? Srila Prabhupada immediately responded, which cloth factory will make cloth for your Virat Roop deity? What will you feed Virat Roop? Don't you remember? When Krishna showed his Virat Roop, he was eating soldiers. What would you feed? So that devotee understood. He got the message. He said, okay, all right, Prabhupada, I got the message. We cannot relate with the Virat Roop. The Virat Roop form in essence gives an idea of the concept of a God, which means all controller. Whereas the two-handed form of the Lord gives the understanding of rasa, where we can relate, where we can have a relationship with the God. And that's the difference between the impersonal form of worship and the personal form of worship. In one sense, personal form of worship becomes more superior because it allows one to have a loving exchange with the Lord. Whereas in the case of impersonal form, there is only awe and reverence and nothing else. So with that, as a little background to the subject, let's get into the subject matter of chapter 12, which is titled as Devotional Service or as Bhakti Yoga. Good news is the shortest chapter of Bhagavad Gita, only 20 verses, okay? But it contains the most essential wisdom that puts this theological debate that we spoke about, personalism versus impersonalism, to rest forever. And this chapter warms the heart of the reader. So in this chapter, Lord Shri Krishna, after establishing Bhakti Yoga to be the highest, to the best, then Krishna essentially discusses about two very important themes. And what is that? Or what are these two themes that Krishna discusses? First, the stages one may undergo to achieve Bhakti Yoga. So first, Krishna establishes Bhakti Yoga in the initial verses, verse number 1 to 7. And then in the rest of the chapter, 2 important themes are discussed. One is the stages of progressive bhakti life. And second, the qualities of the devotee who has attained perfection. Or else you can say, who is on the journey? I forgot to include the verses. So it is from verse number 13 to verse number 20. I'll make this change later on in my PPT, but that's the whole thing here. So that's an introduction to this chapter titled as Bhakti Yoga Devotional Service. Let's begin with the acronym for this chapter so that you can remember the concept. The acronym for this chapter is God, G-O-D, where G stands for Godhead. As I said before, God means controller. But in this chapter, we don't gain insight. We already know God is controller. We have already discussed that in the previous chapter. However, this chapter gives us insight into the more cherished aspects of God's personality and also the disposition of the devotee who is fully in love with the Lord. So when you talk about God, you might have heard of the word Godfather. You say in Hindi, Ishwar Bhav. So God means controllership. But here in this chapter, there's more to than aspect of Godhead or controllership. So this chapter begins with Arjuna's question where he asks, which is better, my dear Lord? The Jnani who is meditating on your impersonal form or the Virat Roop, or the Bhakta who is serving you directly? Which is best? So if you see in India, across the world also. There are many spiritual organizations and gurus who discuss and speak from Bhagavad Gita, but most of them, almost most of them, you can say 99% of them, they don't recognize the speaker of Bhagavad Gita. To give you an example, recognize me, they don't recognize Krishna to be the person, the supreme person, Parabrahman. To give an example, once Srila Prabhupada, when Srila Prabhupada was on this planet, once Srila Prabhupada was invited for Gita Sammelan, a festival to commemorate Bhagavad Gita. Now imagine if you have a festival to commemorate Bhagavad Gita, who do you expect to be on the stage? Krishna and Arjuna, there should be at least a portrait or a deity of Krishna, because Krishna is the speaker of Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada walks into the pandal and is invited up on the stage. And the very first thing Prabhupada looks around on the stage, Prabhupada is surprised. He asks the organizer, hey, what have you called me for? What is this program? Organizer said, Swamiji, this is Gita Sammelan. Prabhupada said, how does it show that this is Gita Sammelan? You have not even a single photo of Krishna, the author of Gita here, and you call this program to be Gita Sammelan? So he said, no, Swamiji, we have the lamp. Krishna is cause of all causes, all pervasive. So Krishna is represented into this lamp. And Prabhupada got very upset. So Prabhupada realized that who all was sitting here, who all have assembled here, they all are impersonalists who consider Lord to be formless. Therefore, Lord Srila Prabhupada decided, Srila Prabhupada was invited to give a talk. Srila Prabhupada decided that I'm not going to waste my time speaking to these Gyanis. Better I'll continue with my writing commentary to Srimad Bhagavatam or whichever Prabhupada was writing then. And Prabhupada asked his disciple Gurudas Prabhu to speak on his behalf to the assembly. Very interesting incident. So Gurudas Prabhu was given the last opportunity and he had hardly 5-7 minutes to speak. And taking that opportunity, a young American, a bold American, he came up on the stage and he began to speak. Everyone is one. Everything is same. You, I, and Ishwar, all are one. We all are God and all are one. When he began to speak like this, the sadhus who were sitting there, who were all these Mayavadis or Gyanis, they became very happy. Oh, Swamiji has given such a nice training to this American disciple. He understands the philosophy so nicely. He understands the message of Bhagavad Gita so nicely. So they were appreciating. And suddenly Gurudas Prabhu gave a shocker. And he said, he changed his conversation. He said, so those who says everything is one, I tell to them, if everything is one, then the rasgulla, the sweet rasgulla that you eat, and next morning when you pass stool after digesting the rasgulla, should also be the same. So with that expectation that you eat that rasgulla, then with the same expectation, you should eat that stool also. If it is all same, then you should not see the difference between the stool and rasgulla. And everyone was shocked. He said, what is this going on? And immediately complaint was sent to Srila Prabhupada, that Prabhupada, what is this your disciple talking about? Such a gross things. And they all came to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudas Prabhu was brought in. And they said, Prabhupada, this is what he spoke. So Srila Prabhupada said, oh, what to do? This is my Western disciple. So they're little graphic sometimes while explaining the concept. So please ignore them. Don't worry. I'll guide him properly. Don't worry. So please excuse him. Don't get offended. And then all these sadhus or gyanis went away. And Prabhupada, with a big ear-to-ear smile, looked at Gurudas Prabhu and he said, Kya analogy thi? Kya bandas analogy mari tumne? And then Prabhupada said, can I use that analogy also? So the point is just one example of Gita Sammelan where Krishna is not recognized. But the point is, this is what exactly happens. Most of the spiritual organizations are confused about the personal aspect of the Lord. And they find it easy to cheat the audience or to tempt the audience by saying, you are Narayan, I am Narayan, all are Narayan. So that becomes, an exciting offer for a jiva to think that I am also supreme controller. And that's how they run their, what do you call, a shopping mall, whatever you want to call it. That's how they run their shop, in other words. So here in this first verse, Arjuna asks, what is better? Now, Srila Prabhupada, the nature of a devotee is such, he cannot hold on to reveal the truth. As soon as you meet the devotee of the Lord, he will immediately tell you who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's the beauty of Srila Prabhupada's writing also. Krishna has not even begun to give the answer. Chapter 12 have hardly begun. Prabhupada in the purport gives the conclusion and gives what is the essence of it. So let's take a look at it. I believe I may have Prabhupada's purport. Yeah, I have included the purport. So by the way, I am not concluding chapter 12 right now. Don't get confused if you see conclusion. I am just saying Prabhupada gives the conclusion, gives the answer as well as the conclusion of Bhakti Yoga chapter right in the first paragraph. And let's see what Prabhupada says. Brilliant purport. Prabhupada writes, this is from the first verse of 12th chapter. In the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord explained that the living entity is not the material body. He is a spiritual spark. And the absolute truth is a spiritual whole. In the 7th chapter, he spoke of the living entity as being part and parcel of the Supreme Whole and recommended that he transfer his attention fully to the whole. Then again in the 8th chapter, Antakale chamameva smaran muktva kalevanam. Prabhupada quotes that Krishna says that whoever thinks of me, they immediately come back to my abode. Prabhupada writes further. And at the end of the 6th chapter, Prabhupada goes back from the 8th and 7th chapter to the 6th chapter, where Lord Shri Krishna in 6th chapter, verse number 47 says, Yoginam api sarvesham mad katinantar atmana. In essence, that among all the yogis, one who always thinks of Krishna within himself is considered to be most perfect. Prabhupada writes further, so in practically every chapter, the conclusion has been that one should be attached to the personal form of Krishna, for that is the highest spiritual realization. Hare Krishna. Thus concludes chapter 12. But that is the only question asked by Arjuna. And Prabhupada ने पहले ही वर्ष में आपको पूरा सार दे दिया है. But just because we are studying, we'll go ahead and see what Krishna says further. Okay. There's a little typo mistake. It is not 2.1 purport. It is 12.1 purport here. So let's take a look at it. How did Krishna responded to Arjuna's inquiry about which is better? Krishna makes it very simple. Lord Krishna says in next verse, Arjuna, Bhakti is best. Why? It's very simple. And there are two advantages of practicing Bhakti or doing Bhakti Yoga. First advantage, it can be performed at any time, in any situation first. And second advantage, result is far much more satisfying. Why? Because association of the Lord drives away all the grief and brings auspiciousness in one's life. So how this bhakti is simple? To give an example, you remember those back in 70s, there was a movie, Dam Maro Dam? Dam Maro Dam. Aage kya tha? Mit jaye gam, bolo subhe sham, Hare Krishna, Hare. Okay. So point is, our Giriraj Maharaj, that time, most of you may not be aware, or some of you may not be aware, he's an American disciple of Prabhupada. So he was in India, had taken a very serious responsibilities. So somebody came and told Giriraj Maharaj or Giriraj Prabhu at that point of time that such and such Bollywood movie has come where they are singing Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. And there were billboards, according to Giriraj Prabhu or Giriraj Maharaj at that point of time, all over the city where Hare Krishna, Hare Rama was put up along with that. So it was just a natural curiosity to go and find out what the movie is all about. Now, he doesn't understand Hindi. He went and saw the movie. Only thing he understood of the movie was Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, nothing else. But interesting thing was, along with him, there was another devotee who was doing the translation. However, not a devotee, was a well-wisher. However, this well-wisher did not tell him the exact meaning of Dam Maro Dam. So he was very inspired that, oh, how wonderful the Indian cinema have taken Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, put it into the mainstream, and now the whole world will get to know. And that way he went to, from Chennai, he went to, I believe, Calcutta, and there he went and spoke to all the devotees. You should watch this movie. This is a fantastic movie. And then, along with those devotees, he went there. And this time, when he went to the theater, Giriraj Maharaj was told the reality, what is happening. And then, when, as you all know, the reality of the movie, they're showing that this Hare Krishna people, they smoke ganja, take drugs, and they chant, and they this kind of wilderness. So when Giriraj Prabhu Maharaj got to know, he got very upset. He flew back to Bombay, where Srila Prabhupada was there. He went to Srila Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, what is going on? We are working hard day and night to promote the culture of India, the Vedic culture, and people in India are putting out such a kind of abusive movies. What they're doing, they're showing us in such a bad light. Prabhupada said, wait, what happened? And he sang the song, Dam Maro Dam, like this. And Prabhupada had a big smile on his face, which further bewildered Giriraj Maharaj. And Maharaj said, Prabhupada, why are you smiling? You should be upset. Prabhupada said, Hare, they are chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. When people will watch this song, hear this song, everyone will chant now Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Don't you know, just by chanting once, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Not even once chanting the whole mantra, even just chanting Hare or Krishna or the combination of it can purify the person and starts this devotional service back to Godhead. And like that, Srila Prabhupada explained how bhakti is so simple that it can be practiced at any time, at all the places. Just a disclaimer, I am not promoting Devanand movie here. Neither I am recommending for you all to start chanting Dam Marodam as a mantra and keep aside Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That's not the point, okay? I'm just making a point that bhakti is simple. I mean, of course, there are rules and regulations along with that, but it's not that complicated. And like that, there are many examples. Another example that comes to mind, there was this European who was traveling in a ship from one place to another. And then one of the friends of this European, I believe he was a captain, and the previous captain of the ship, he had brought a plant from the place where the ship was, parked before, or whatever you call it, docked before. And then this particular captain who came in now became the captain of the ship. He started to take care of the plant. Just he felt that I should take care of the plant, and he began to water the plant. And when his duty got over, he brought the plant along with him to the house in London, and he continued to water this particular plant. And the beauty of this plant was it will not give any fruit, no fragrance, no flowers, but just leaves. And like this, he continued offering water to this plant. And after some days, he met devotees on the streets at London, and they gave him a copy of Bhagavad Gita. He started reading Bhagavad Gita, and very soon he became a devotee. And one day, some devotees came to his house, and they saw this plant. And they asked him, from where did you got this plant? And this man had no idea what this plant was. And you will not believe, all this while he was watering Tulsi Maharani. Just by offering water to Tulsi Maharani, he had awakened bhakti in his heart, and he had got attracted to bhakti yoga. That is why Lord Shri Krishna says here, Arjuna is simple and best. So Arjuna thought, okay, then my dear Lord, why impersonalists are considered inferior? In the second verse, Krishna also says, Bhakti is very simple, but still impersonalists also ultimately come to me. So Arjuna began to think, my dear Lord, then why impersonalists are considered inferior? If Bhakti is superior, then why impersonalists are considered inferior? Is an obvious question. And Krishna addressed that in the next follow verses, where verse number 3 to verse number 5 of 12th chapter, Krishna makes a point that this path of impersonalism is very, very painful. Why? Because the person have to practice control of senses. He has to practice doing all kinds of exercises, yoga asanas. He has to hold his breath, stand on his head, live in the forest. This is for the Jnana Yogi, right? He has to leave everything, take a path of renunciation, perform severe austerities and whatnot, then perform meditation. Now, can you imagine while we sit in our house with all the comfort, then our mind is so fearful, worried about the future, past, present, whatnot. Imagine you're in a jungle. How can we be peaceful? So Krishna says it's very difficult, it's not easy. In essence, Krishna says, yes, either through bhakti yoga or through this impersonalistic path, which means jnana yoga, you can attain me. Both will bring to me. However, if bhakti yoga is like this, if you want to touch your nose, you raise your hand and bring it like this. If bhakti yoga is like this, so simple and straightforward, that this path of jnana yoga, impersonalism is like this. You turn around your hand. Try it, everyone. Do a little exercise. You'll get to understand the pain of Jnana Yogi. So this is the impersonalist path where he turns around and goes around. And Krishna already said in 7th chapter, Bhunam Janmanamante, Jnanavan Va Prapadite. It's a very, very long process. After many, many lifetimes, they attain me. Srila Prabhupada gives another example in the purport in this particular section, a very famous example, where Bhakti Yoga path is considered to the lift kind of, you want to reach to the 20th floor. You press a button, get inside the lift, and immediately takes to the 20th floor without much effort. However, this Jnana Yoga or impersonalistic path is like staircase, where you begin to walk. And what is the difference between lift and the staircase method? In the lift, you don't do any endeavor. Only endeavor is be in the lift. While in the staircase path, you have to put your effort and climb up on your own. That is the difference between Bhakti Yoga and Jnana. In Bhakti Yoga, devotee is dependent on the Lord, prays for his mercy, recognizes him as a person who hears his prayers. In a Jnana Yoga path, he's searching for the absolute truth. So he depends a lot on his own ability and strength. And what is our ability and strength in context of this whole creation? In reference to Lord or the Lord's energy. That's the reason it becomes very difficult. Finally, as Lord Shri Krishna in 9th chapter, verse number 2 says, Bhakti is performed joyfully, susukham kartum abhyayam. And that's the whole point about it. Bhakti is simple and Bhakti is joyful. So Srila Prabhupada in 12th chapter, verse number 5, in the purport, Prabhupada gives reasons, he sums up, and he gives reasons why Bhakti is better. So this is from the purport. Prabhupada says Bhakti is better because it's easy to fix the mind. Lord Shri Krishna also says that actually. Easy to fix the mind, which means you have a deities in front of you. Now you can meditate on the Lord because you know the form of the Lord. Well, how would you meditate on something which does not have a form? Yes or no? Meditation is so difficult when there is no object. In Bhakti Yoga, you have such a beautiful form of the Lord on which you can meditate. Engages the senses. We do kirtans, we dance. All knowledge acquiring senses, all working senses are thoroughly engaged in the service of the Lord through different practices. So that's the reason every sense is satisfied and the mind is satisfied. Third, very important, you don't need to be born into a Brahmana. You don't need to be a sannyasi according to Varnashrama. You don't need any material qualification. You don't need to be highly learned in Vedic scriptures. You don't even need to be learned in Vedic scriptures. What you just need to have, faith in Guru and faith in Holy Name. Faith in Holy Name comes by having faith in Guru, by hearing from him. So the process just begins with the faith. That is the only thing which is required. And fourth, why Bhakti is better? Because Krishna protects his devotees. Name Bhaktya Pranashyati. Arjuna, declare it boldly. 9th chapter, Lord Shri Krishna tells Arjuna, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. So, here is my question to all of you. And the question is, if Bhakti is so easy, so sublime, then why would one still take to the path of impersonalism? Oh, the poll question is not there. Hare Krishna. Okay, there is a little mistake. The poll question is not there. So anyone wants to type in their answer? What do you think about it? We can take it on the chat. Is chat enabled? Yeah, chat is enabled. Hare Krishna. So if Bhakti is so simple, Bhakti is so easy, then why would one still take to the path of impersonalism? What is that one thing because of which one still takes to the path of impersonalism. Any thoughts? Okay. People writing ignorance, not having faith, attached to material desires. The answer is envy. There's only one point answer, that is dvesh, envy. Envy towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because he cannot accept himself into the role of a subservient, that I am not the controller, but subservient to the Supreme God, Krishna. So this envy is what impels one to go onto the path of impersonalism, as what Srila Prabhupada describes. So after describing this particular aspect, now from verse number 6 to 7, Lord Shri Krishna would glorify Bhakti Yoga. What are the glories of Bhakti Yoga? Lord Shri Krishna in essence says, then Bhakti Yoga, a devotee becomes dependent on Krishna, which means becoming reliant upon Krishna, devotee develops his love for Krishna and develops further desire to serve Krishna. And then he leaves the responsibility of freeing oneself from the clutches of Maya on Krishna. In essence, Lord Shri Krishna says the glories of Bhakti Yoga is one does not have to depend on his endeavors alone. One recognizes his situation and position in this world, and he takes shelter of the Lord and leaves everything on the mercy of the Lord. Any examples from scriptures where a devotee raised his hand and said, Krishna, Pahima, you decide whatever you want to do. I surrender fully unto you. So please give me an example other than the what you see on the screen, okay? So you already see Draupadi. Don't give an example of it. Oh, okay. So please continue giving your answers. 1 second, I'll just stop my screen here. 1 quick second. How do I do that? Just let me try. So yeah, please go ahead. What are the other answers that you can think of? Oops, what opened? Just making a little minor change here. Just give me a quick second. All right. So here is our presentation again. Allow me to share my screen once again. Yeah, so Srila Prabhupada, Ambrish, Gajendra, Arjun, Sudama. Yes, there are many, many examples that you can see. And that is what the beauty of Bhakti Yoga, as these two verses describes. I read out a part of this purport, very beautiful. Srila Prabhupada writes, Hare Krishna. Okay. Attempting to reconnect. Well, I'll continue with my presentation here. Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, quotes a very beautiful verse. Yavai sadhana sampatti purushartha chatustaye tayavina tadapnoti naro narayana ashraya. The purport of this verse is that one should not engage in the different processes of fruitive activity or cultivate knowledge by the mental speculative process. One is devoted to Supreme Personality can attain all the benefits derived from other yogic processes like jnana yoga, rituals, sacrifices, charities, etc. And that is a specific benediction of devotional service. And how can we practice this Bhakti Yoga? Prabhupada writes further. Simply by chanting the holy names of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A devotee of the Lord can approach the supreme destination easily and happily. But this destination cannot be approached by any other process of religion. Bhagavad Gita 12.6 to 7, Srila Prabhupada's purport. In essence, here Lord Shri Krishna concludes the first aspect, the first answer to the first question, or the only question here asked in 12th chapter. Which is better? personalist or impersonalist? And Lord Shri Krishna concludes, personalist, impersonalist both have the same destination, but the path of impersonalist, the journey of impersonalist is very tedious, very difficult, very long. Whereas the path and the journey of personalist, which means a practitioner of Bhakti Yoga, is sublime and blissful. So when Arjuna heard this, he began to ponder, my dear Lord, you have glorified Bhakti Yoga to be the best. How to perform bhakti? And this brings us to the second section. Anything? Should I do anything on the laptop? Sorry? Protected view at my side. Should I try once more? Sorry, just doing a little tweak here. Give me a quick second. I guess I'll not touch it. My laptop should not hang. Okay. Okay, Hare Krishna. Sorry for that interruption. We'll continue. Yeah. So, okay, no, this is not the point we're discussing here. Yeah, come to the next topic. This brings us to the next section of this chapter 12, where O stands for options. From verse number 8 to 12. Very, very important, which discusses about the progressive path of bhakti. Here, Lord Shri Krishna demonstrates his magnanimity and understanding. Lord recognizes that some may find it difficult to immediately embrace a devotional path. Therefore, Lord Shri Krishna offers progressive steps towards such a devotional spirit, which includes the practice of regulated spirituality, worship through one's daily work, and the cultivation of knowledge. Thus, the beauty of Bhakti Yoga is one can begin their journey according to what is feasible for one and realistic. For an instance, why Lord Shri Krishna is giving options? Lord Shri Krishna can say, this is the only way, this is how you can do it. So how do we understand that Lord are giving different options for us to practice bhakti according to one's situation, current situation? Is similar to a question that why Lord appears in different incarnations. It's an open question to all of you. You may think and write it on and reply to the chat box. Why? Why Lord takes incarnation, different incarnation? Well, Lord has, Lord says, Paritranaya sadhunam, विनाशाय च दुष्कृताम धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय धर्म की स्थापना करना अधर्म का नाश करना भक्तों का संरक्षण करना और दुष्टों का सर्वनाश करना यही भगवान का मकसद है नरसिम्हा देव से बड़ी अवतार क्या है उसके लिए आया ना इंस्टेंट डिलीवरेंस इंस्टेंट डिस्ट्रक्शन वन डे एवरीथिंग ओवर राइट और नो बार बार अलग अलग अवतार लेने की क्या आवश्यकता है So Krishna comes in different conditions. Point to be noted here. Not only that, in Bhagavad Gita itself we read, Lord Shri Krishna have introduced so many types of yoga systems. Isn't it confusing? One yoga, like people say, why so many religions? It's the same answer. Why so many religions? To this point, why Lord described different yoga systems? Any idea, any thoughts? Why Lord is bringing so many varieties? Dipali, according to need of devotee, time and situation. Okay. Tarun, Lord Krishna takes incarnation for us humans to prove that all forms are his only. Okay, he appears in different incarnations, forms, okay. To protect us from different situations. And there are different answers are given for that. Okay. The reason is all of us are inspired differently. Some are inspired by Rama's incarnation. Some are attracted to Krishna's incarnation. Whereas some are attracted to Lord Narasimha's incarnation and avatar. To give you a real life example, one of our devotee in Europe was going on a vacation and he was on a boat ride and he decided to visit one of the deserted islands where the native tribe lived. So when he reached that island, and the person who was standing at the beach there, when he met them, he was shocked. Our devotee was shocked when he saw that person. This person was wearing a kanti mala. And he was like, how is it possible? This is a native tribe. They have very, very little interaction with the outside world. Wearing a kanti mala, how is it possible? So he asked a devotee, he asked a person, who gave you this kanti mala? So that person said, well, a couple of months ago, or not months ago, some time ago, there was one person who had come and he had brought a copy of Bhagavad Gita with him. So you can understand who that person was, our book distributor. So he brought a copy of Bhagavad Gita and began to talk to us, and he told us that, do you believe in God? I said, yes. Then he said, this Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Lord Matsya. So I said, who is Matsya? And then he explained, Matsya is a fish incarnation god. And who was this tribe? Most of these tribesmen were fishermen. By default, they could relate with the fish. So when this devotee said, Matsya, incarnation of the fish, Lord had appeared in the incarnation of a fish, he immediately said, yes, I would like to read a Bhagavad Gita. And like that, he became a devotee. It's a real life story. So similarly, as I was making a point, why Lord Shri Krishna introduces different incarnations, a different path, it's just because of different interest level. People are inspired differently. Therefore, in this section, from verse number 8 to 12, effectively, Lord Shri Krishna describes stages of progression in bhakti. And you can choose yourself. You can start from any of the place. And let's take a look at it. Verse number 8. It highlights the quality of absorption. What does Krishna say here? Krishna says, just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus, you will live in me, always without a doubt. This is the highest stage. This is not the beginning stage. This is the highest stage where one's mind and intelligence is completely, soaked with Krishna consciousness. There is no other thought than serving Krishna, than remembering Krishna. To give an example, as you can see in the photo, is a photo of Raghunath Das Goswami, who was so absorbed in chanting the holy names of the Lord, remembering Krishna, offering service to Vaishnavas, very austere, would drink or take a little sip of a buttermilk every second or third day. So one day he was sitting at the bank of Radha Kund. It was a scorching sun, peak of the summer season. His whole body was sweating, but still he was sitting and chanting, full with absorption. Such was his absorption that Sanatan Goswami, another of our great Acharya, was walking past Radha Kund, our most sacred place in whole of the creation, which comes in Govardhan. And Sanatan Goswami, when he saw Raghunath Das Goswami in this state, he was totally shocked. Why Sanatan Goswami was so shocked? He became so disturbed and so agitated that what Raghunath is doing? Raghunath is chanting to serve the Lord, but rather he's taking service from the Lord. So what had happened? Srimati Radhika, as you can see in the picture, Srimati Radhika got so compassionate seeing her devotee Raghunath Das fully absorbed in remembering Shri Radha and Krishna, that Shri Radhika appeared on the spot, and with her pallu, she covered the head of Raghunath, so he gets shaded from the sun. And now Shri Radhika was getting sweat in the scorching sun. So this is just one example of absorption. Is of the highest pedestal, is the highest consciousness, where there is a dynamic relationship between the devotee and the Lord. Who is master, who is servant, is very difficult to tell. If I ask you in this example, who is master, who is servant, you can think about it yourself. It's very difficult to say. So it's a higher stage. Krishna says, you can be at this stage. Arjuna said, no, bhai. Kuch apne laik ka bolo. This is not for me. Of course, this is not Arjuna saying, but I'm saying Arjuna is thinking for our sake that, my dear Lord, this is so difficult. You're asking me to fix in mind and intelligence. It is very difficult. If I'm not able to do it, then what? Then Krishna says, all right, 9th verse, perform sadhana bhakti. What is sadhana bhakti? Lord Shri Krishna defines. My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, you will develop a desire to attain me. So, what is a sadhana bhakti or sadhana? Sadhana bhakti refers to following the rules and regulations in a regulated manner, which means we are given chanting. We chant on the beach. In the beginning, people have all kind of excuses. Oh, when I chant on the beach, my mind get distracted. Do I need to chant 2 rounds? Can I just chant whenever I want to chant? I chant all the time. These are all the excuses of the mind. Sadhana bhakti means either you be on the stage, which is described in the 8th verse, 24/7 observed. If not, Krishna says, do sadhana bhakti, which means regulated number of rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Srila Prabhupada told us to chant minimum of 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Follow the ABCD formula: association of sadhus, reading of wisdom literatures, chanting, Krishna Prasadam Seva. When we do this under the guidance of Guru, then it is called as sadhana bhakti. And how does it work? Srila Prabhupada gives a very beautiful purport. Let's read it out. Bhakti yoga is the purification. So how does this whole bhakti yoga works? Prabhupada describes. What's the science behind it? Bhakti yoga is a purification of the senses. At the present moment in material existence, the senses are always impure, being engaged in sense gratification. But by the practice, of Bhakti Yoga, these senses can become purified. And in the purified state, they come directly in contact with the Supreme Lord. In this material existence, I may be engaged in some service to some master, but I don't really lovingly serve my master. I simply serve to get some money. And the master is also not in love. He takes service from me and pays me. So there is no question of love. But for spiritual life, one must be elevated to the pure stage of love. That stage of love can be achieved by practice of devotional service performed with the present senses. Srila Prabhupada further writes, this love of Godhead is now in dormant state in everyone's heart, and it is contaminated by material association. Now the heart has to be purified of the material association, and the dormant natural love for Krishna has to be revived. This is the whole process. To practice the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, one should, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, follow certain principles. And those are the ABCD formula. This practice can help anyone rise to the level of love of God, and then he's sure of his progress into the spiritual kingdom of God. You can read it again. The essence is the practice, the sadhana bhakti, the Bhakti Yoga path. It purifies one's consciousness, purifies one's mind of the material desires. So when we do this practice, abhyasena to kanteya, that Lord Shri Krishna spoke about in 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, by regular practice and regulated practice, one's consciousness develops. And then he develops the desire to serve Krishna. And then he graduates to the discussion which is given in the 8th chapter. Arjuna heard it. Arjuna appreciated. He nodded his head. And then Arjuna began to think, my dear Lord, what if I don't have time? Right? Sounds familiar? कभी कभार होता है ना, सब कुछ है हमारे पास, सिर्फ एक चीज की कमी है, काल की, समय की. Or else, what if I don't have interest in this direct devotional practices? Then what? Lord Shri Krishna says, well, all right. In verse number 10, then work for me. If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me. Because by working for me, you'll come to the perfect stage. Which refers here, which Krishna means that ho sakta hai somebody may not have the ability to chant the holy names of the Lord, read scriptures. However, if not, maybe you qualify at a stage which Krishna is describing here in the 10th verse, that you can work on behalf of Krishna. And Prabhupada gives an elaborate purport where he talks about you can assist the Krishna's causes. For example, you can assist in different services which helps propagate Krishna consciousness. You can help with the temple, you can help run the food plaza or the Govindas. You serve on behalf of Krishna. That is what it means for work for Krishna. Here, you do not have the right to choose the type of work. Work for me means you have been asked to do something and you do that. That is what it means. However, you may have your, you will get the results for it and all that. That might be given to you. But now somebody may say, fine, what if I cannot do this much also? No problem if you cannot do this much. Then, okay, it's the same thing, yeah. Issue with the slide deck. Krishna says, Arjuna, if you cannot work for me also, then at least give up the results of your work to me as a sacrifice. Do charity. When you use the wealth that you earn in the service, then you purify your mind and you become detached from your material attachments. Then you make a progress. Then your mind becomes purified of attachment. However, Arjuna, if you cannot do this much, that you cannot even use the results of your work in the service, in my service, then at least, so this was 11th verse, and now finally in 12th verse, Krishna says, all right, then at least cultivate knowledge. What knowledge Krishna is indicating? Knowledge of Atma. Better than that is meditation on Paramatma. And better than that is renunciation. What is the result? If somebody does it like this, then he'll get the peace of mind. The summary, the essence of this discussion. This is how the progressive stages of devotion are described. From verse number 12 to verse number 8, where the verse number 12 is the lowest stage or indirect stage. So how is the flow that Krishna describes? First, Krishna says the highest level is fix your mind on me, which means the result is will live in relationship with Krishna. If not, follow sadhana bhakti, regulated principles of sadhana bhakti. Result, you develop desire to attain me. If not, work for me. Result, you will come to the stage of devotional service. You qualify yourself to at least you develop taste or desire to practice bhakti yoga. You cannot do this much also, at least take to renunciation. Renunciation refers here to dedicate the fruits of your work in my service. You cannot do that much, cultivate knowledge. Higher than knowledge is meditation. An advantage of the result, you will get purified of your attachment to material things and your mind will become peaceful. And this is how Lord Shri Krishna describes as progressive stages of bhakti. And I believe all of us could find ourselves in at least on one of the stages. Yes or no? Now you know where you are. Now you know where to go also. So now the question should be for oneself is, how do I progress to the next stage? The answer is given in the purports. Please read the purport of this particular section and you'll get to know how do I make a progress from 12.10 to 12.9, from the third stage to the second stage. And that would be described there. So we're running short of time. I guess I'll not go much elaborations of this, but maybe I can just give you one example. How people are attached to their things and they find it so difficult to give even charity. Once a big businessman from Delhi visited Srila Prabhupada and Vrindavan. And he came to Prabhupada and said, Swami ji, बहुत दुखी हूँ, बहुत ही चिंता है, बिजनेस में कभी कभी बहुत परेशानियां होती हैं, वैसे मैं बहुत बड़ा बिजनेसमैन हूँ. Prabhupada said, oh really? How big is your business? And he described that he has so many factories, here factory, there factory. Prabhupada said, oh really? So what is the cause of your stress? And that businessman said, the cause of my stress is all my business. These factories have become the cause of my stress. Prabhupada said, okay, I have a solution for your stress. You have come to me for solution. And the businessman, okay, yes, Swamiji, I want relief from my stress. Please tell me what is the solution. Prabhupada said, because you have stress because of your factories, you give me the key of your factories to me, and I'll take your stress also. And that person began to step back. Swamiji, thank you for your darshan. I'll come some other time. And then Prabhupada looked at him, and he was kind of trying to run away from the room. And Prabhupada immediately called for his servant. He said, hey, wait, you're supposed to give me the keys. Go catch him, don't let him go, catch him. That person ran away from there. Anyways, jokes apart, the point is, like this, Asakti. I remember, just to lighten up the moment, there was another businessman who came to visit Prabhupada, that too in Vrindavan. And he was a big owner of a big cement factory. I believe the name of the factory at that point of time was Sharma Cement, for instance. So this person came to him, Srila Prabhupada, and was talking about his business and everything. That I am so and so, I have such a big business. So Prabhupada asked him, to whom does the factory belong? And the man said, to my father, Mr. Sharma. And then Srila Prabhupada said, oh, that's the reason your factory's name is Sharma Cement. The man said, yes. Then Srila Prabhupada, how do you make cement? The man said, we get rocks from the mountain. Prabhupada said, where do the mountain comes from? The man said, Lord provides it. Then Srila Prabhupada said, so you are a thief. You steal from Lord and don't give him credit. You should call it Krishna Cement Factory. Why do you call it Sharma Cement Factory? The man became a little frightened. And he said, Prabhupada, but I sometimes donate to the temple. Then Prabhupada said, oh, all right. Then you're a small thief. Don't worry. Anyways, so you see people in different levels of consciousness. One person ran away. Other person, he does some charity. Like this, all of us are on different gradations of our consciousness. So without spending much time on this, let's come to the last section where Arjuna began to ponder, my dear Lord, you have glorified Bhakti. You have described Bhakti Yoga practice at different stages. So what are the qualities of a person who are engaged in Bhakti? And this brings us to the last section of this chapter 12. Devotee's disposition. As one begins this journey, spiritual journey, we all would have an experience that we begin to develop saintly qualities. Krishna in this last section concludes by describing the qualities of a perfected devotee who attained perfection of Krishna consciousness. And Krishna describes the qualities of such devotees such as tolerance, determination, satisfaction, etc., which we'll discuss right now. Devotees endowed with such qualities, they become very dear to the heart of Krishna, who becomes bound by their spotless devotion. Thus, this particular or the last section of 12th chapter describes the beautiful relationship between Krishna and his devotee, who are bound with each other in an invisible rope of love and affection. As I said before, and in this relationship, who is master, who is servant, is not known. So it's a discussion in itself. I'll give you a 5-minute summary. So you may bear with me for a couple of more minutes. We'll conclude our discussion for today. So we'll describe these qualities in 4 categories. 1, what is the attitude towards oneself? We all have certain attitude for oneself, how we look at ourselves, what we think about ourselves, right? So first categorization we'll do is attitude towards oneself. Second, dealing with others. How do I deal with others? Third, how do I respond to the situation? Well, it's not about I. The discussion of I here is of pure devotee. How a pure devotee looks at himself. How a pure devotee deals with others. How a pure devotee responds to the situations. And what is the relationship between the Lord and the pure devotee? So I'll give you the summary of it. So what is the attitude towards oneself of a pure devotee? He is freed from the concept of false ego. He does not think himself to be the enjoyer or the proprietor. Neither he is attached to fruitive results. He is also freed from the sense of proprietorship. He is equipoised, honor, dishonor, fame, and infamy. Like this, he carries an attitude towards oneself. He does not get affected when somebody does not offer respect to him. You got the point? That is the point. He's equipoised. Somebody gives him a lot of appreciation. He still sees himself in his eternal relationship to Krishna. And from that perspective, he looks at the world. Somebody dishonors him, he understands this is not me, because nobody can dishonor Atma. It is only to the body. Like that, he's equipoised in his consciousness. How does a devotee, a perfected devotee, deals with others? The very first challenge that we all have in dealing with others is, what is the biggest challenge we all face in our dealings with others? The biggest challenge is envy, right or no? It is that envy that makes us hate or dislike others. So the very first foremost quality while dealing with others, he is non-envious. He is compassionate and friend to all, which means he does not put anyone into difficulty or stress or anxiety. He is not disturbed by anyone. He is equal both to friends and enemies. Third, he is freed from contaminated association, which means he never takes bad association. Association of people and association of information. He has no interest in mundane news, movies, and so forth. Fourth, silent, maunam. What is mauna means? Mauna doesn't mean to keep quiet. That is not maunam. Mauna means only speaks about transcendental subject matters, not otherwise, which means speaks about Krishna and not anything else, because everything else just agitates the minds of everyone. Third aspect, how does he respond to the events of this world? How would he respond to the COVID situation, to the India-China war, or to whatever XYZ situation we have? He's self-controlled. As I said, sukhe dukhe samay kritva, he's equipoised. He's satisfied with whatever comes by Krishna's mercy. He does not complain if he gets COVID, and he does not become proud because he has not got COVID until today. Either of the situation, whatever he sees as a mercy of the Lord. And he doesn't care for any material facility. If it is there, okay. If it is not there, just like Raghunath Das Goswami we were discussing as one example, who was just wandering from one forest to another, who was the son of a very, very rich person, rich merchant you can call. Yet, because he has taken to Bhakti, he was so absorbed in Krishna consciousness, he was just not affected by the mundane things or requirements of this world. Because the goal of the devotees of the Lord is Vaikuntha, so they're not affected by temporary issues or problems. Fifth, equipoised and tolerant, expert, Daksha knows how to use everything in service of Lord. They are pure internally and externally and sees all events, everything as the mercy of the Lord, not anything else. Fourth context to the fourth parameter, what is the dealing between the Lord and the devotee, such a devotee? He engages in bhakti with faith and determination. Nothing can move him. He's immovable on the path of bhakti. And his mind and intelligence are thoroughly fixed on Krishna. And we can think of many examples like that of Mother Kunti, Bhishma Pitamaha, Vidura, and Srila Prabhupada on the modern history. With this, we come to the conclusion of chapter 12, where 12th chapter, verse number 20, Krishna says, who is the dearest to me? Ye tu dharmamritam idam yathoktam paripasate shaddhadhana mat parama bhaktaste tiva me priya. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. So with this, we conclude the middle section of the Bhakti Yoga section of Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 chapters focus on Karma Yoga. In other words, Bhakti through one's work. That is called Karma Yoga. The 13th chapter onwards, the discussion would be to attain Bhakti, achieve Bhakti through Jnana. And the middle 6 chapters talk about attaining Bhakti through Bhakti itself. So in this purport of this 20th verse, Srila Prabhupada gives a very beautiful conclusion. So I thought rather than I giving a conclusion, we'll just read out what Prabhupada writes, a masterpiece. What Prabhupada writes about this? Prabhupada says, the question of who is better, one who is engaged in the path of impersonal Brahman or one who is engaged in the personal service of the Lord. This was a question with this chapter 12 opened. Prabhupada says was raised by Arjuna. And what did Lord reply? Lord replied to him that there is no doubt that devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the best process of spiritual realization. In other words, in this chapter, it is decided that through good association, one develops attachment for pure devotional service and thereby accepts a bona fide spiritual master. And from him begins to hear and chant and observe the regulative principles of devotional service, like chanting, offering prasadam, following Ekadashi, etc. With faith, attachment, and devotion, and thus becomes engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. Thus ends Bhakti Vedanta purpose to chapter 12, titled as Bhakti Yoga. With this, we conclude our discussion for today. Tomorrow evening, when we meet, as decided in the beginning of the course, tomorrow we'll give you the overview of this middle 6 chapters. And next week onwards, we'll begin our discussion of the last 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Bhakti through Jnana, chapter 13 to chapter 18. With this, I sincerely thank each one of you for joining us for today evening, spending your valuable time in hearing the message of Lord Shri Krishna. Hare Krishna. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. I will leave it back to the host of our today's program. If anyone has any questions or anything.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for such a wonderful class. Prabhuji, Anushri Mataji has a question. Should I read out the question, or should we ask if Anushri Mataji is
Hare
there?
Krishna. May I request our audience if they can switch on their cameras so I get to see who all we have here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, Anushri Mataji question is, if envy is the reason for people to follow impersonal form of Lord, then actually
All right. Isn't, huh? Looks like we are not able to hear the sound of the host. Host is trying to speak something.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can you hear me?
No, you're not audible. So I guess somebody wants to speak up directly, they can speak. What mic? No, उससे क्या problem है?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can you hear me?
Yeah, very much audible now.
Okay, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, Anushri Mataji has a question.
Yes.
So the question is, if envy is the reason for people to follow impersonal form of Lord, then actually in Bhagavad Gita discussion, it is said that everyone is born of this nature. And as a practicing devotee, also we do have a tint of envy, which we are fighting every day.
Correct.
So what makes us different from impersonalist? So that's
who told you anything makes you different from impersonalist? We are impersonalist. Through the process of Bhakti Yoga, we are trying to become personalist. We are not personalist right now. We are impersonalist only. That's the reason you have an experience of envy. We, through the practice of Bhakti Yoga, are now trying to purify our impersonalistic tendencies. And that happens to the degree our heart gets purified of envy. And to get freed of envy, the best method is to serve Vaishnavas by in the mood of dasanudas. When we serve Vaishnavas, when we develop that attitude of service to Vaishnavas, then we develop that attitude of envy-free towards the Lord. And then we develop this personalistic, aspect.
Prabhuji, second
Thank you, Prabhuji.
question.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, second question is from Pallavi Mataji. Mataji is asking, if Krishna knows everything and reside in each of us, can silence and asking nothing from the higher authority can be considered as a legitimate mode of communication with the Lord? Is concept of silent prayer true?
The silent prayer works. You can always do that, no doubt about it. It'll be nice if whoever asks this question can ask me directly so I can cross check and then have a discussion. Because, yes, you can always make a silent prayer, you can pray to the Lord. But my point is, when you have an opportunity to approach a senior and talk to them, why don't you approach and talk to them? Now, the only scenario when we try to avoid that is when we have got into a conflict with our seniors. Then, in that case, we can always pray to the Lord to guide us and guide that person. But otherwise, I'm really not clear what exactly is the point here. But we can always approach. But yes, prayers works. Prayers always work. It depends on the sincerity of our intent. But you have to be very careful when you're making a prayer. Do not be in the mood of that the prayer that you make should be fulfilled the way you want it to be fulfilled. Because that we cannot dictate to Krishna. Krishna would fulfill our prayer in his own way, and we should be willing. To wait for that. So, whatever I could a little bit understood of your question, I've tried to address. In case if you want to speak up directly, we can discuss this more.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, next question is from Vinayak Prabhu. I can see Vinayak Prabhu is there. Vinayak Prabhu, you can
The
ask
previous
directly.
question was address. Is that mother is still there online?
Let me check, Prabhuji.
I mean, if she is, they have the right to unmute. Otherwise, we can go to the next question. Fine.
Okay, Prabhuji. Vinayak Prabhu, you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yeah. Prabhuji, I have a small query in the first this point that about how the devotee thinks about himself when other persons behave badly. Sometimes many great people like Agastya and very great devotees, Vasishta, they cursed many kings and all. So, what is the
Yeah.
mood of cursing?
No, you have to understand. You're talking about the people who had long, long life. And Vashishta, when he had got angry at Ramba and others, he was not a pure devotee at that point of time. Now, Vashishta was not born as a pure devotee of the Lord. You getting a point? So they later on gradually became the devotees of the Lord, or you can say a great devotee of the Lord. So we cannot quote that example in this context, what they did in the history. So when we talk about sadhus, we should know one thing for sure, that yes, everyone has a history, sadhus also have a history. But what's more important is that the difference between sadhus and sinner is sadhus have a history, but the sinner have a bad future, whereas sadhu has a glorious future. So when you're talking about this Agastya Vashishta, at the time, they were not actually pure devotees of the Lord. So I don't know what was their level of devotion, what can be discussed or compared to, but definitely not what is being described here at this point of time about the perfected beings. What we discuss is the qualities of perfected beings, and they were not at that point of time in this category. Is that okay?
But what about the mood of Naradji while cursing Kuvera and Manigriva? So they have done some offense. So Naradji has also.
No, so the curse of a sadhu is always a blessing. Narad Muni, because first of all, you have to understand they have no envy. And if you see the pastor in Alkuvera Manigriva, it actually shows Narad Muni had no envy. You tell me, was it really a curse or a blessing for Nalkuvera Manigriva?
Actually, it's a very high blessing.
So then there was no curse only.
So that means the sadhu's curse is a blessing.
I mean, you don't do a mathematics with me. If 2 plus 2 equals to 4, which means 3 plus 1 has to be 4 also. Okay, don't do like this. Sadhu's curse has to be blessing and all that. Sadhus are of different degrees. Let's talk about the pure devotees of the Lord. There is nothing called as a curse. Everything they do it for the benefit of the society. Similarly, Narad Muni's so-called curse was a blessing. So, yes, all right.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, we are done with the questions in the chat window.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. If anyone else has a question, then they can unmute themselves.
I guess you're almost done
Hare
with the
Krishna,
time
Prabhuji.
also.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna. Who
Prabhuji.
is speaking?
Prabhuji, I am Sudhir.
Yes, Sudhirji. Nice to see you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhuji, with this last question, I have a similar rather doubt or no, it's observation that we say we have while doing chanting and in a process of renunciation, we have to forgo anger, ego, and but what we have heard, and we are with all the stories and read past times that many god demigods and other sages, they have got anger and they are cursing, or they because of it. Is it all because the Lord wants them to do that, or is it their own? This I'm not been able to put the question properly, but just continuation with that.
So that has to be seen case to case. Who are those personalities? And for some, the Lord would have directly interfered to accomplish some greater task, just like Parikshit Maharaj, a pure devotee of the Lord, apparently becomes angry at a rishi because he did not welcome him properly. Not properly, he did not even offer him a water. Parikshit Maharaj was
Yeah.
thirsty. And out of a sudden anger, a burst of anger, which was unknown to Parikshit Maharaj in his character or trait all through the life, suddenly becomes angry and he puts a dead snake around the neck of the rishi. Now that act of putting a dead snake was not at all an offensive in comparison to what the rishi had done for the king. The king of the world had come. He was to be welcomed. There is a culture and etiquette around it, but he didn't do it. The point is, when the son of the Samika Rishi Shringi had cursed Parikshit Maharaj, when the son came back and told the father, woke him up from meditation, and father saw the dead snake, he threw it off. He was just hardly affected. And when Shringi, his son, told him what will happen, and when he told that I've cursed the king for doing this offense to you, the father said, what offense? There was no offense. The king cannot do any offense because this king Parikshit Maharaj was a Rajarishi. But yet something happened which was inappropriate, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But the sage said it was not inappropriate at all. It could be just circumstantially something might have happened. So here the sage acts as a great devotee, or really as a sage, not getting disturbed. But how did Parikshit Maharaj do this? How could it be possible? The act of Parikshit Maharaj was inspired by the Lord so that the Leela, or the pastime of the narration of Srimad Bhagavatam could happen. And that was the whole idea. So in case of Parikshit Maharaj, yes, Lord was very much involved. So again, we have to see case to case. But in general, let me make this very simple point. The sum and substance of the last section of the 12th chapter is, one who practices bhakti, he develops all the good qualities. That's the point here. And what was discussed along with that were the qualities of the perfected beings. So to be able to analyze and understand how a certain devotee acted in a certain environment, we have to study and discuss that. There can be hundreds and hundreds of cases. That would not be worthwhile to have a discussion right now here. But what could be worthwhile is to have a discussion that does the practice of bhakti really cultivates good qualities? Because that is of a subject matter relevant to all of us. Yes or no?
Yes.
If I take to bhakti, would I also develop good qualities? That should be a question of importance to us rather than more reflecting into the historical context, which individual case will require a little analysis. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, Prahlad Maharaj quotes, or he says, Yasyasti bhakte bhagavati kinchana sarve gunestatra samasate suraha harav bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manorathena dhavato bhai. What is the essence? Sarve gunes tattva samasate suraha. The one who is a devotee of the Lord, he develops all the good qualities. However, one who is not a devotee of the Lord, मनोरथे नास्ति धावतो भाई, मन के रथ पर बैठकर वो अलग अलग जगह भटकता रहता है. His educational qualification and material possessions have no value because he cannot have any good quality because mind is not under his control. And the modern day example of it, well, there are a lot of examples. Valmiki himself, Ratnakar, the hunter. Then we have also the case of a hunter who would half kill the animals. Narad, when he met him, we have so many examples in the modern day hippies who Srila Prabhupada met, and the very recent examples of all of us.
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Those who have
Yes,
taken to the path of bhakti, I can tell for myself, if it was not for bhakti, if I had not taken to the path of bhakti, I was living in America. I was materially pretty successful. I had a high paying job and a lot of future in that professional career that I had. And now, if a young man has a lot of wealth and a lot of professional success, what do you expect the young man to do with the money and all the affluence? You know very well what happens.
Yeah, Prabhuji.
Now, if the life has made almost a 180-degree shift, is all because of what? Is because of Vaishnava's mercy, Srila Prabhupada's mercy. It's just the power of bhakti. And I'm just making one random case about myself. ISKCON has hundreds and thousands, tens of thousands, far better cases of transformation or worthwhile discussing, where people developed far better good qualities by their sincere practice of bhakti. I'm just in the big stages struggling to be a sadhaka, but there are examples of great transformations, all because of the power of bhakti. Now, my question to you, or homework, is a question for everyone. Go and find out any process, any spiritual path that can bring about such a transformation, where people can give up. Of course, at least for myself, I came from a family background where we didn't have any of these practice of sinful life. But in general, meat eating is a part of a culture today. Intoxication is very much part of a college life. Gambling, I don't think so. That is so much in vogue in India. Illicit relationship, you know better than I about the reality of this. So how can people stop all this thing? I don't think so. There is any other spiritual movement on planet Earth today outside of the paramparas, Shri Samprada, Rudra Samprada, Pushti Mag or Brahma Gaudya Brahma Madhva Gaudya Parampara, Madhva Parampara. These all are paramparas, authorized parampara. Apart from them, where anyone would follow these four regulative principles. At max three, but not the fourth one. Yes?
Ji Prabhuji.
So what gives power? And the best part of it, फिर भी खुश हैं फिर भी खुश हैं प्रश्न ये बनता है आप खुश कैसे रह सकते हो फिर भी खुश हैं and that's a beauty.
मैं कुछ शेयर करूं आपसे
yes
कुछ शेयर करूं आपने कहा four regulatory principles. I was a meat eater up to age of, now I'm 55, up to age of 52. Even at the most precious days like Shivratri and Mahashivratri, then Ashari, I used to eat meat because that the day the meat was prepared little and it was tasty. But today, after continuously hearing all this, I have for past 3 years, I have not touched or I have not felt like touching the meat, or I am following all regulatory principles with grace of Guruji. I just wanted to share this with you.
Thank you. And that is what the essence of the last section of the 12th chapter, that how practice of Bhakti Yoga transforms the consciousness character and just changes our whole attitude towards oneself, toward others. And that is how devotees become so loved ones. People love devotees in general. Of course, they have enemies also. There will be always some people to purify your life here in the world. But generally, people love them. They're so kind, compassionate, caring. Who would feed you prasadam? Isn't it? So many wonderful things can be discussed nonetheless. So thank you so much for your wonderful question. Thank you.
Ji Prabhuji, thank you.
So I guess, yes?
Prabhuji, if you have time, I can see Abhay Charan Prabhu is raising his hand.
Okay. Yes, we
Hare
have a
Krishna.
young boy of the program today here.
Hare
Yes,
Krishna,
sir.
Prabhuji, Shringi sadhu or not, Prabhuji?
Say that again.
Shringi sadhu or not, Prabhuji?
Shringi sadhu or not, he was a Brahmana for sure. But if you go to the definition, according to the definition, what Kapila Muni says of sadhu in third canto Srimad Bhagavatam, then he didn't act it like a sadhu. Titikshva karudikaha. Tolerant, compassionate. He violated these first two qualities of a sadhu. So I leave it to you to decide. But he didn't act it as a sadhu. And his father was angry at Shringi. He said, "You have abused your powers as a Brahmana, as a son of a great Rishi." So he didn't act it on that particular situation as a sadhu. All right.
Okay, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you all for your time and sincere hearing. So we'll meet in, what's the time? 7:30. So the session is at 6 o'clock. So we'll meet again in 22 hours and 30 minutes from now. All right? Hare Krishna.